She wanted me on the floor, begging. Instead, she watched her lover stagger out the door, clutching his ribs, while I stood tall. That's how it started. That was the moment everything changed. But to really understand how we got there, I need to take you back to the second I walked through that door. It was late. I'd just finished a brutal 12-hour shift. My boots were caked in mud, my shirt clung to me with sweat, and all I wanted was to collapse on the couch with a beer. Instead, I walked straight into hell. At first, it didn't make sense. The house was too quiet. Not peaceful quiet, the kind of quiet where you know someone's waiting, watching. And then I saw him. Some guy I'd never met before was sitting on my couch like he owned the place. Mid-30s, cocky build, smirk on his face like he'd already won some fight that hadn't even started. And behind him was my wife. Arms crossed, chin raised, smiling like she had finally pulled the trigger on some long game she'd been playing. I didn't even get a chance to drop my keys. He stood up, cracked his knuckles, and sized me up. My wife didn't say a word. She didn't have to. Her look said it all. You're done. You're nothing. Watch what happens now. That's when it clicked. This wasn't a random surprise. This wasn't even about the affair. No, this was her big plan. She wanted me humiliated. She wanted me broken. She wanted another man to put me on the ground while she watched. But she had no idea who she was dealing with. Quick pause. If you're into raw, real revenge stories like this one, make sure to hit that subscribe button. You won't want to miss what happens next, because trust me, it only gets crazier. He stepped forward, slow and deliberate, like a schoolyard bully savoring his moment. I could see it in his eyes. He thought this was going to be easy. He thought I was weak. Hell, my wife thought the same thing. That's why she'd been able to plan all this behind my back. She thought I'd fold, that I'd crumble, that I'd beg. But when his hand touched my shoulder, something inside me flipped. Not rage, not fear, something colder. In one sharp motion, I twisted his wrist, shoved him into the wall, and watched drywall crack under the impact. He let out a grunt, stunned, like he couldn't believe I had it in me. She looked just as shocked. He tried to recover, swinging wild, but he wasn't a fighter. He was just a guy who thought size and ego made him dangerous. I slipped the punch, drove my knee into his stomach, and followed with a clean elbow that sent him stumbling. The sound of his breath leaving his lungs was the sweetest silence I'd ever heard. And then there he was, doubled over, gasping, clutching his ribs. She screamed my name, like I was the villain, but I didn't move. Didn't yell. Didn't even breathe heavy. I just stood there cold, watching. That silence? That stillness? That scared her more than the fight itself. Because in that moment, she realized I wasn't the man she thought I was. 5 minutes later, he was gone. Staggering out the door, broken and humiliated, muttering something about calling the cops. But we both knew he wouldn't. He wasn't going to admit he came here to humiliate me and ended up crawling out instead. She tried to talk. Tried to explain. I didn't give her the chance. I grabbed my keys, walked past her, and left the house without a word. That night, I didn't crash at a friend's place. I didn't drown it out at a bar. I sat in my truck, engine off, replaying everything. Not about the fight. Not about him. Not even about her. No, I was thinking about what came next. Because here's the truth most people never learn until it's too late. The best revenge isn't loud. It isn't messy. It's slow. It's smart. It's surgical. And if she thought that night was the end of the story, Omen, she had no idea. When I left the house that night, I didn't slam the door. I didn't yell. I didn't even look back. And trust me, that silence cut deeper than any words could. Because manipulators, cheaters, abusers, they feed off reaction. They want anger. They want tears. But me? I gave her nothing. I drove around for a while, no music, no destination. Just the hum of the tires and the replay of what happened in my living room. Him gasping, her screaming, and me, standing over them, calm as stone. The old me would have gone back. Would have demanded answers. Would have begged to know why she did it. But that version of me was dead. Gone the second her little plan backfired. By the time I parked my truck outside a cheap motel, I already knew. She didn't just betray me. She underestimated me. And that was her biggest mistake. The next morning, my phone lit up with missed calls. 10 from her. 3 voicemails. I didn't listen. I didn't text back. I just sat there, drinking burnt motel coffee, staring at the wall, thinking. And the more I thought, the calmer I became. She expected rage. She expected me to storm home, scream, throw things, maybe even beg her to choose me over him. She had a whole script in her head, the weak husband routine. But I wasn't going to play my part anymore. That day, I didn't go to work. Instead, I started making notes. Real notes. I pulled out a notebook and began writing down everything. Dates, times, suspicious moments, money missing from accounts, the way she'd been isolating me from friends over the past year. It all lined up. She hadn't just cheated. She'd been laying the groundwork to strip me of everything. My money, my house, even my dignity. The affair was just the cherry on top. She thought she was untouchable. But now, she'd handed me the perfect weapon, her arrogance. By the third day, she was unraveling. Text after text. At first, they were soft. Please, can we talk? Then sharp. You're acting childish. Then desperate. You can't just ignore me forever. I didn't reply. Not once. Silence is louder than any argument. And trust me, it drove her insane. Meanwhile, I wasn't just ignoring her. I was preparing. Quietly. Carefully. I called a lawyer. Not for a consultation, not yet. Just to ask questions. About divorce. About assets. About protecting myself. The guy didn't know it, but every word he said was a brick in the wall I was building between me and her. At night, I'd drive past the house. Sometimes her car was there. Sometimes it wasn't. And I'd smile because I knew, every time she left, she wasn't just meeting him. She was digging herself deeper. But here's the thing, I didn't care about him. Guys like that come and go. He wasn't my problem. She was. She made the choice. She invited him in. She tried to destroy me. And now, I was going to return the favor. By the end of that week, she cracked. She showed up at the motel. Banging on the door. Crying. Begging. Accusing. I didn't let her in. I just watched through the peephole as she melted down, shouting at me through the wood. That's when I realized something important. She was scared. Not scared of losing me. She was scared because, for the first time ever, she couldn't read me. Couldn't control me. Couldn't predict what I'd do next. And that fear? Oh, that was sweeter than any revenge I could have dreamed of. Because I knew this was just the beginning. By the second week, something shifted. The calls slowed down. The texts got shorter. And then, silence. That's how manipulators work. When begging doesn't work, they switch tactics. They wait. They hope you'll crawl back. But I wasn't crawling anywhere. I was building. Every night after work, I sat in my truck with that same notebook, filling page after page. Bank statements. Odd cash withdrawals. Work dinners that didn't add up. Times she was at her sister's, but her car was spotted in another part of town. The more I wrote, the more obvious it became. She hadn't just cheated. She'd been running a long con. And she thought I was too dumb, too passive, too beaten down to notice. That was the beauty of it. She was still living in the house. I let her. Why rush? Why give her any clue what I was planning? I wanted her comfortable. I wanted her to believe she'd won. Because comfort makes people sloppy. One night, I drove by and saw the lights on in the living room. Curtains open. She was pacing, phone in hand, talking fast. Even from the street I could tell, she was nervous. And the best part? She had no idea I was sitting out there, watching. See, I wasn't just writing notes for myself. I started organizing. Dates went into a timeline. I printed off bank records, highlighted suspicious transactions. I saved her texts, her voicemails, everything. Slowly I was building a file, a weapon. And then I dug into him. It wasn't hard. People like him leave trails. Social media full of flexing pictures, nights out, business trips, that looked a lot more like excuses. And then I found it. He was married. With kids. That changed everything. Because now, this wasn't just about me. There was another family she'd helped destroy. Another set of lies tangled with ours. I sat in that motel room staring at the screen, thinking, did his wife know? Did she suspect? Or was she living in the same fog I'd been in, clueless that her husband was sneaking around behind her back? I didn't make a move yet. Timing was everything. But just knowing she existed gave me leverage. It gave me options. Meanwhile, my wife was slipping. Neighbors started noticing. A friend of mine texted me out of the blue, "Hey, man, is everything okay? Saw your wife with some guy at the bar the other night." I didn't answer. Didn't need to. The more people saw, the more her mask cracked. And once cracks show, the whole facade eventually collapses. One afternoon, she left me a message. Voice trembling. "We need to talk. Please. I know I hurt you, but you don't understand. It's complicated." Oh, I understood. I understood perfectly. The more desperate she got, the calmer I felt. Because every word out of her mouth was proof that she was losing control. And when a manipulator loses control, that's when they're most dangerous, but also the easiest to destroy. So I stayed quiet, patient, watching. And as I watched, I realized something that made me grin in the dark of that motel room. She was already starting to dig her own grave. All I had to do was hand her the shovel. By week 3, I stopped feeling like a victim and started feeling like a detective. Every clue I dug up painted a clearer picture. My wife hadn't just been unfaithful, she'd been running an entire side operation behind my back. It started with the bank records. At first, I thought maybe she was just careless with money. But then I noticed transfers. Not huge, but consistent. Little amounts pulled from our joint account and funneled into one I didn't recognize. That's when I realized she had a secret account. I shouldn't have been surprised. She'd been pulling away for months. Little lies, girls' nights, that never made sense, credit card charges at places she couldn't explain. And me? I'd been too tired from work, too trusting, too blind. Not anymore. I spent hours combing through the statements, highlighting every dollar that went missing. And the more I dug, the more I saw the pattern. She was preparing for a life without me. A life where she'd walk away with the money, the house, maybe even the sympathy of everyone we knew. But that plan depended on me staying clueless. And that's where she screwed up. Once I knew about the account, I traced it. Turns out she wasn't even subtle. Same bank. Same branch. She'd opened it months ago. Probably thought I'd never look. I started making copies. Digital scans. Screenshots. I backed everything up to a flash drive I kept hidden in the lining of my work bag. If she ever got into my stuff, she'd find nothing. And then I hit another jackpot. One evening, I went back to the house when I knew she was out. I still had a key, and technically it was my house too. Inside her office drawer, buried under old mail, I found documents, credit card bills, personal loan applications, even a folder with receipts from hotels and dinners. She hadn't just been cheating. She'd been using our money to fund her little secret life. Looking at those papers, I didn't feel angry. I didn't feel betrayed. I felt focused. Like a chess player seeing 10 moves ahead. I gathered everything, took pictures, put it all back exactly where I found it. She'd never know I'd been there. Meanwhile, I kept watching him online. Her lover. The more I saw, the more pathetic he looked. Flashy, reckless, posting like a teenager. But here's what really stood out. He wasn't making money. Not the kind of money that could support her new lifestyle. Which meant she was banking on my money. That was the best part. She thought she was being clever. Thought she was setting herself up for a soft landing. But in reality, she was building a case against herself, and I was the one collecting it. Neighbors started whispering. Friends asked questions. And every time I ignored her calls, every time I didn't react, she got more desperate. I could feel the pressure closing in on her, even without being in the same room. And that's when I decided, it was time to set the first real trap. I wasn't going to confront her. I wasn't going to give her the satisfaction of a fight. I was going to let her keep digging, keep spending, keep lying, while I quietly stacked the evidence that would destroy her. Because soon she wouldn't just lose me. She'd lose everything. By the time a month passed, she thought I was fading. That's exactly what I wanted. I stopped answering her texts completely. Then, one evening, I finally responded with just 2 words: "We should talk." The bait was simple. She thought my silence meant I was broken, that I was ready to crawl back, ready to forgive. She had no idea it was the opposite. We met at a cafe, public, neutral ground. She showed up dressed like she was going on a date. Full makeup, expensive clothes, the works. She wanted to look like she was still in control. Like she was the one doing me a favor by showing up. But here's the thing, I didn't show up broken. I showed up calm. Too calm. And that unsettled her. She started soft. "I know things have been hard, but we can fix this. You and me. Forget what happened." Forget? She really thought she could erase the image of her boyfriend stumbling out of my house like a whipped dog. She thought if she played the sweet card, I'd fold. I didn't argue. I nodded, sipped my coffee, let her talk. And the more she talked, the more she exposed herself. She slipped and mentioned needing stability. She dropped hints about money being tight. She even brought up selling our house to start fresh. Translation: her little fantasy world with Loverboy was crumbling, and she needed me as her safety net. I pretended to hesitate, acted like maybe I was considering it. I told her I was exhausted, that I missed the good times. All eyes. But she ate it up, eyes lighting up like she just won a game. And then, just to push the illusion further, I apologized. I told her I was sorry. Sorry if I drove her away. Sorry if I hadn't been enough. Watching her face light up at those words almost made me laugh out loud. She thought she was winning. She thought she had me back under her thumb. That's when I knew the trap was working. After that meeting, I let her feel like she was back in charge. Answered her texts, but slow. Agreed to work on things. Meanwhile, I was still copying her bank activity, still collecting proof, still laying the groundwork. A week later, she invited me to dinner at the house. Said she wanted us to reconnect. I accepted. When I walked in, everything was staged. Candles. Fancy food she probably ordered, not cooked. She poured me a drink, smiled too wide, touched my arm like nothing had happened. But beneath the perfume and fake warmth, I saw the cracks. Her hands shook slightly when she reached for her glass. She laughed too loud at nothing. She was trying too hard. And the entire time, I just played along. Polite. Nodding. Smiling. But in my head, I was 3 moves ahead. Because I wasn't just collecting evidence anymore. I was letting her dig herself deeper. Every word she said, every promise she made, every fake smile, it was another rope I'd wrap around her when the time came to pull tight. By the end of the night, she looked almost smug again. Like she'd pulled me back. Like her little humiliation stunt had been erased. And that was perfect. Because the higher she thought she climbed, the harder the fall would be. When I left that night, she kissed my cheek and whispered, "We can fix this." I smiled. But in my head I thought, "No, sweetheart. We're not fixing anything. We're just setting the stage for your collapse." Her little game with me was just one piece of the puzzle. But the man she chose to humiliate me with? He was about to become my favorite target. I already knew he was married. That fact alone was enough to give me leverage. But I didn't want leverage, I wanted devastation. I wanted to peel back every layer of his life and let it all collapse in front of him. So I started digging. It wasn't difficult. He lived online. His social media was a shrine to himself, flexing in the gym, flashy dinners, pictures with business partners who looked more like drinking buddies. And then there were the tagged photos. Nights out with women who weren't his wife. He wasn't careful. He thought he was untouchable. One night, after scrolling for hours, I stumbled across the jackpot. A picture of him with my wife. Not obvious, not kissing, but close enough. Arms around her waist at some cheap bar, both of them laughing. It wasn't damning proof for the world, but for someone who mattered? It would be. And I knew exactly who that was. His wife. I debated it. Should I send her everything? Or should I wait, build the pressure until he cracked on his own? In the end, I decided subtle was better. Too much at once might scare her into silence. But a slow leak? That would destroy him from the inside out. So I sent one picture. Anonymous email. No words. Just the picture of him and my wife, time-stamped, location tagged. I didn't expect an immediate response. But within 2 days, I saw the fallout online. His profile went dark. Her account, his wife's, posted a vague message about betrayal and truth always coming out. That was just the beginning. Meanwhile, I fed the fire. A week later, another email. Screenshots of his dating profiles. Yeah, he had those too. Another week, a hotel receipt I pulled from my wife's stash. Each piece landed like a hammer. And slowly his world cracked. He stopped posting. His friends unfollowed him. The gym selfies disappeared. Rumors started spreading in town. Small town gossip travels fast, and soon everyone knew Loverboy wasn't just a cheater, he was sloppy about it. The best part? I didn't have to lift a finger beyond hitting send. His own arrogance did the rest. My wife didn't know yet. She was too busy trying to play happy homemaker with me, thinking her trap had worked. But I knew it was only a matter of time before she realized her boyfriend was spiraling. And when she did, oh, she'd panic. Because the one thing she never planned for was losing both of us at the same time. So I waited, patient, watching. And then it happened. She showed up to our next reconciliation dinner, looking rattled. Makeup smudged, hands shaking. She tried to cover it, but I saw it. Something was wrong. Halfway through the meal, she slipped. He's going through a lot right now, it's complicated. There was proof. She was watching her backup plan crumble, and she didn't even know I was the one pulling the strings. I just smiled, poured her another glass of wine, and nodded like I cared. Inside, I was laughing. Because for the first time in weeks, I didn't just have control. I had them both exactly where I wanted them. By the time Loverboy's life was in ruins, I knew it was time to take the next step. She still thought she was balancing two worlds, me, the rebuilding husband, and him, this secret passion. But now one of those worlds was already burning, and she didn't even realize I'd lit the match. That's when I decided it was time to strike where it would hurt most, the divorce. I met with my lawyer again, this time with the file I'd been building for weeks. Pages of bank statements, screenshots of text messages, voice recordings of her manipulations, even photos of the receipts I'd pulled from her office. He looked through it slowly, then leaned back with a smile. Son, this is airtight. You're not just walking out clean, you're walking out ahead. That was all I needed to hear. We filed the papers quietly. No confrontation, no warning. One morning, a process server knocked on her door while she was still in pajamas. And just like that, the war went public. The first call came 20 minutes later. I didn't answer. The text started pouring in, "What the hell is this? We don't need lawyers, we can talk about this. You're making a mistake." Mistake? The only mistake I'd made was waiting this long. She tried every tactic. Sweetness. Anger. Denial. At one point, she left me a voicemail sobbing, saying she'd never meant for things to go this far. But the thing about manipulators is they're never sorry for what they did. They're only sorry they got caught. Meanwhile, my lawyer froze the joint accounts. She couldn't touch the money anymore. Her secret stash wasn't enough to keep up her double life. And with her boyfriend under fire from his own wife, she had nowhere to run. I didn't gloat. I didn't shout. I didn't even reply. That silence cut deeper than anything I could have said. But then came the best part. In court, when we met for the first hearing, she walked in trying to look confident. New dress. Perfect makeup. But I could see the panic behind her eyes. She thought she'd play the victim. Thought she'd spin the story her way. She didn't know I had receipts. My lawyer laid them out one by one, the financial transfers, the receipts from hotels, the screenshots of texts. And then the kicker, a recording of her gaslighting me during one of our earlier talks. The judge's face told the story before the words even left his mouth. She wasn't just losing the divorce. She was exposed. Her head snapped toward me like she couldn't believe what was happening. But I didn't look at her. I kept my eyes forward, calm, collected, like this was just business. Because for me it was. By the time the hearing ended, she realized the truth. The safety net she thought she had was gone. She wouldn't be walking away with the house. Or the car. or even alimony. She was walking away with nothing. And me? I was walking out free. But it wasn't over. Not yet. Because I still had one card left to play. The card that would make sure she never forgot the night she tried to destroy me. And when I dropped that card, it would be checkmate. The second hearing was the one that mattered. The first round had stunned her, but she still thought she could claw her way back. She probably believed the judge would take pity on her, that she could spin some sob story about mistakes and forgiveness. But what she didn't know was that I had saved my best evidence for last. She walked in looking shaken this time. The new dress was there, but the confidence wasn't. Her eyes darted around the room, and when she saw me sitting calmly with my lawyer, she froze. She knew something was coming, she just didn't know what. The judge called us forward. Her lawyer tried the sympathy angle first. Talked about how she was confused, how she had been under pressure, how she regretted her actions. It was almost laughable. Then it was our turn. My lawyer stood, cleared his throat, and began laying it out like a story. The money transfers. The secret account. The hotel receipts. The text messages. And then, the recordings. When the first audio clip played, her voice, cold and manipulative, twisting my words, mocking me, the courtroom went silent. You could feel the shift. She squirmed in her chair, eyes wide, face pale. The judge leaned forward, listening carefully. My lawyer didn't rush. He let the silence after each clip sink in, like hammer blows. Then came the knockout punch. Remember Loverboy? The one who thought he could humiliate me? My lawyer revealed the truth. He had a criminal record. Assault. Bar fights. And guess who had invited him into our home, fully aware of what could happen? Her. My lawyer presented the timeline, the evidence, the motive. It wasn't just infidelity. It was conspiracy. She had plotted to humiliate me, maybe even to hurt me physically, by inviting a violent man into our home. Her face went white. She looked at me, shaking her head like she wanted me to stop, but I just stared straight ahead. Unmoved. The judge's ruling was swift. The divorce was granted in my favor. She wouldn't see a dime. No house. No car. No alimony. And worse? There was now a potential investigation into her role in the attempted assault. When the gavel hit, she broke. Tears, sobs, excuses spilling out, begging the judge to reconsider, begging me to be reasonable. But it was too late. The damage was done. I stood, buttoned my jacket, and walked out without looking back. For months, she had tried to paint me as weak. Tried to strip me of everything. Tried to make me beg. And now? She was the one begging. That day, in that courtroom, I didn't just win the divorce. I took back every ounce of power she'd stolen. And as the heavy doors closed behind me, I knew one thing for sure, her fall wasn't over yet. Because I still had one final move left. After the court ruling, she thought the worst was over. She lost the house, the money, the car, but in her mind, she could still rebuild. She still had her independence, her little stash, and maybe even the hope that people would pity her. But I wasn't finished. Not yet. Because there was one thing left I hadn't revealed. One card I'd been holding close to my chest from the very beginning, her role in the setup. Remember the night it all started? When I walked into my house and found him waiting? That wasn't an accident. That wasn't some coincidence. It was her plan. She invited a man with a violent past into our home to humiliate me, maybe even hurt me. And I had the evidence to prove it. While she thought she was busy rebuilding her life, I was busy handing that evidence over. Police reports, his criminal record, screenshots of their messages setting up the night. All packaged neatly, delivered to the right people. And then the investigation began. At first, she didn't know. She kept trying to text me, still swinging between anger and fake apologies. I ignored it all. But then she showed up outside my work, screaming in the parking lot, accusing me of ruining her life. That's when I knew she'd finally felt the walls closing in. Because she wasn't just a cheating spouse anymore. She was a suspect. Word got around fast. Our small community loves gossip, and soon everyone knew she wasn't just the woman who cheated, she was the woman who conspired. Her friends stopped calling. Even her own family distanced themselves. And lover boy? He was long gone, too busy trying to salvage his own destroyed marriage. She was alone. Exactly where she had wanted me to be. The next time we faced each other wasn't at a cafe or at the house. It was in a sterile room, with investigators asking questions. She sat across the table, pale, shaking, eyes wide like a trapped animal. They asked her about the messages, about the timing, about why she invited a man with a record into our home, knowing I'd be there, tired from work, unaware. She stumbled over her answers, stammering, denying, crying. But every denial was met with another document, another screenshot, another piece of evidence. And me? I didn't say a word. I just sat back, watching the mask crumble for the final time. By the end of that meeting, she knew. It was over. Not just the marriage. Not just the money. Not just the respect she'd lost in the community. Everything. Her image. Her control. Her future. She left that building looking like a ghost. Shoulders slumped. Eyes hollow. No more fake confidence. No more games. That was the moment I knew I had won. Completely. Because revenge isn't just about beating someone in the moment. It's about making sure they can never stand back up the way they were before. She tried to destroy me. Instead, she destroyed herself. And I didn't even have to raise my voice. When the dust finally settled, I was free. Not just legally. Not just financially. I was free in a way I hadn't felt in years. The house? The money? Protected. The car? In my driveway. But those things weren't the real victory. The real victory was inside. For so long, she'd convinced me I was weak. She'd whispered it, shouted it, built situations to make me feel small. And somewhere along the line, I'd almost believed her. But the truth? I was never weak. I was patient. I was calculating. And when the time came, I showed just how dangerous that patience could be. After the investigation, she faded from everyone's lives. No more friends, no more family to lean on, no more lover to run to. She was just a ghost walking through the ruins of the empire she tried to build on my back. And me? I moved into a new apartment, smaller, but mine. I started hitting the gym again, something I hadn't done in years. I picked up old hobbies, reconnected with friends I hadn't seen since she started isolating me. For the first time in a long time, I laughed and actually meant it. Therapy helped too. Talking it out, putting the pieces back together. I didn't want to just survive what she did to me, I wanted to grow from it. And I did. The funny thing is, people started telling me I seemed younger, lighter. Like I'd dropped not just a person, but 100 pounds of invisible weight. And maybe I had. Sometimes, late at night, I'd think back to that moment. The night I walked in, exhausted from work, and saw him standing in my living room. The night she thought she'd break me once and for all. She thought I'd be on the floor, begging. Instead, she's the one who crawled out, and I walked away taller than I'd ever been. That's the part of the story I'll never forget. She didn't just underestimate me. She gave me the perfect chance to prove her wrong. And I took it. Now, when I wake up in the morning, I don't feel dread. I don't feel trapped. I feel free. And I know one thing for sure, I'll never let anyone put me back in chains like that again. Because sometimes, the sweetest revenge isn't just making them lose. It's showing them that without you, they were nothing all along. Backhand index pointing right if you watched until the end. Tell me what you think. Did I do the right thing? And what would you have done in my place? Don't forget to subscribe so you don't miss more insane stories. Hit the like button if you enjoyed it, and drop a comment. I read every single one.